When people think of a successful business owner these days, they think the picture has to include a Lamborghini and a private jet. But the reality is, behind all the social posts, there are only 4 core functions that successful business owners need to focus on to ensure they can create a successful business that enables you to have the income you want, but also enables you to have a lifestyle that you love. Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode 129. There are only 4 functions that you need to focus on to create a successful business, and I'm going to walk through every single one of them today. And if you haven't subscribed already, I'd love you to subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified when the next episode becomes available. And if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, I'd love you to actually subscribe there as well and leave us a comment, leave us a review. Let us know how we're going. We love to hear from you so that we can know that we are doing something of some form of value. So I'm going to walk through each of these 4 individually and show you how to get the most impact from each. The first is capability. If you don't have capability, you can't help people get results. And so your capability is about getting people results and outcomes. And so you need to have something like that, especially if you want to create a consulting practice. If you can't help people get results, if you don't have the capability to do it, then really we need to go back to school. Now, school is not the traditional school of yesteryear. School is the traditional school of the school of hard knocks. We might actually have to get some life lessons to take expertise or information that we have and apply it to outcomes. I call that outcome expertise. And so it's the ability to take things that we know, but to enable someone else to get the same result. Often we need to create a framework or a series of steps that allows us to identify what it is that enabled us to get the result in the first place. And then having that framework enables us to get that result over and over and over again. And we can potentially pass it on to other people on our team to help them get the result for the clients as well. And so capability is such a key one. And it's not something that you stop. Like, it's good enough to get good enough so that you can start running a business, but it's not good enough to stop building on your capabilities as you go, because the reality is the rest of the people around you are continuously getting better as your business goes on, and the world around you changes. So the context that your capability fits into is always going to be different. So unfortunately, for those people who are running a business, school's never out. We are constantly looking at ways to improve, get better, and improve the results for our clients. Not even just to get them the result, but to get them result faster, bigger, better, lower risk, easier. There's so many different variations of what that looks like. But that's the capability I'm talking about. You know, we get good enough to be able to help someone achieve a result, and then we continually look at ways to improve our capabilities so we can become masters in our industry. So if you have capability, then you can use that to get clients results, but you don't have clients yet. So clients is number 2. How can we enable someone to realize, number 1, that we have the capability and that we are the best person to help them with taking that step now? And so there's 3 steps to getting clients. Number 1, they need to be aware that you exist. They also need to be aware that they have a problem that they want to solve. And so that awareness part becomes a massive key for people even knowing that you could be potentially part of a solution. And so once they're aware of you, then they need to identify that you have a solution of some sort. And a lot of the time, that's not about presenting a solution because they're not ready to hear about a solution, but about talking to them about the symptoms that they're suffering from. What is the pain they're experiencing? What's the problem they're experiencing? And talking to them in a way that helps them understand that you understand their problem. From there, we engage them. They're now aware that you potentially have a solution. And then the next step is to identify whether you have the best solution for them right now. Now, I recommend in a consulting practice that that's a collaborative and diagnostic approach, and that's something we teach inside the Forge Business Program. But whatever you're doing, it's about the client identifying or the prospect identifying that all the pieces line up for them to be able to say yes to you now. And there's many different variations of what that looks like in sales processes. But at the end of the day, it's as simple as that. They believe that you have the best solution for them right now and they're ready to take the step forward. And so this is how you get clients. And often there is a thought process that I want to get, 10 clients, 50 clients, 100 clients, whatever it might be. And there's this intangible sort of picture of what the clients look like. But the reality is for successful business owners that they understand that each client is an individual. And so you get 1 client at a time. That is how a business is built. We're not getting 10 clients at a time. We're not getting 50 clients at a time. We're getting 1 client at a time. And so for many people, that can feel like a lot of work taking an idea of like, well, if I get 50 together, there's some sort of leverage in that, versus the idea of one person needs to make a decision for me to be able to work with them. So I can share my capability and help them get specific outcomes. But there are many steps that go into getting clients, and if you don't have clients, that really is the constraint in your business right now. If you don't have capabilities, then capability is the constraint in your business. But once we've got clients, then we move on to step 3. Now, step 3 is where I see a lot of consultants in particular get stuck. They have clients, but they get stuck in capacity. They don't have the capacity to be able to service more clients. And for many of those people, what they've done is that they've engaged sort of big, heavy retainers, maybe an $80,000 retainer, where they're stuck with an individual client, and maybe the capacity is they can look after 3 or 4 of those individual clients. Now, it's still good money, right? You can still make a good living building a business in that fashion. But what ends up happening is you find yourself stuck in a corner where you don't have time to focus on the growth of the business. You don't have time to focus on the strategy of the business. And so you end up doing, not instead of one job where you left an employer to actually start this business, you end up with like 3 or 4 bosses and end up just running 3 or 4 jobs, which really doesn't change the lifestyle from what you originally had as an employee to what you hoped it would be when you ran a business. And so the key in this step is, how can you find more capacity? How can you open up the opportunity to have more hours? Well, each of us as an individual doesn't have just more hours to spend. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We're not time wizards. But there are ways to get more capability, and some of that is going to be around engaging employees. Now, the employee model is so broad these days. It could be a local employee, it could be an overseas employee, it could be a contractor, and there's all sorts of laws around contractors, so check in your local area. It could also be an artificial intelligent employee, right? So these exist now, and so depending on the tasks that are available, you can free up time, you can free up capacity with some of these employees in place. Now, in some cases, they're just going to free up time for you to do your best work. So you apply your time to where your genius hangs out. So if you're very good at strategy, then you do strategy, and then your team around you look after the admin side of things. But you may actually want to build a business where you are not helping the client. Your team is helping the client. And the most successful businesses understand that really they are in the business of attracting good people and good talent and actually putting them through a system to enable their clients to get results. The biggest businesses will have to go that way. But you might be happy very much with a lifestyle business that's earning $300,000 to $600,000. You can certainly do that on your own with a small team of people who can free up time and capacity. So capacity has many different versions of how we can create time. One of those in particular is about changing the model of how you do delivery. If you're finding that the delivery that you're giving is not just consulting or not just advice, it's actually deeper than that, where you're doing the work for people. Number one, I always talk about, if you're doing the work for people in a consulting role, you're disabling them, because when you leave, they can't do that thing anymore. But more so, are there ways that you can help the client do the work to get things done? That's going to free up so much of your time, but it's also going to be valuable for them because they learn how to run the process. Which we're not trying to hold on to clients forever. We're trying to help them get outcomes, then we release them. That's the best opportunity that can happen with any of the clients that we work with, is that they get to the place that they wanted to get to, and then they go on and live their lives. All right. So there are all sorts of ways that you can free up capacity, but certainly team, certainly the business model that you actually choose, and how you go about running your business can be large components to that. But if you don't have capacity, you can't grow. So the focus and the constraint, if you've got clients and you've got capability, is capacity, and how can you actually open that up to enable more clients to come on board. So if we've got capabilities and we've got clients and we've got capacity, really the world is our oyster, and now it's a time to make profits. And so what do we need to do? We need to capitalize on the opportunities that we've generated. And so capitalization really comes into bringing a client in, and there is a cost of acquisition to do that. There is servicing that client in some fashion. There is usually a cost to do that as well. And then there is something left over, which is the profit. And so how can we form a way of creating maximum value from every single one of the clients that we work with? Well, there are a number of different ways to do that. Number one is we can have them buy more things from us, so more opportunities with us. Now, that could be helping them get one result, which then enables the opportunity to talk about the next result, and then the next result after that. And so we don't want to necessarily get stuck in a rhythm with a client, but if we are progressing them, then that's a very positive place to be. So another option is we can reduce churn. So for many people, they might have programs, training programs, coaching programs, groups, and people joining those groups, there is a certain amount of those people who will leave the group. That's churn. The same sort of thing happens in any place that has a membership. And so reducing churn is really a case of increasing perceived value, so that people find that the thing that they've got here is of a higher priority than other things they're churning out of. Yeah, because everyone has a certain amount of time, a certain amount of money, and a certain amount of attention that they can dedicate to you. So there's many reasons why people churn out. And sometimes it's legitimate reasons, like maybe they are no longer in business, and so they've churned out because they've gone into retirement, for instance. But that doesn't mean that you can't put things in place to enable them to have more value from the thing that you're offering. And so reducing churn, increasing the value of the individual clients by doing simple things. A lot of the time people haven't put the prices up enough. There are so many consultants I speak to who are still charging $500 and less, sometimes even $50 in some cases, to do work for clients that where the value is like $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 in some cases. And they just can't see the value through their own mind's eye. The client can see the value and they think they're getting an amazing deal, but the consultant can't see the value. And so one of the things we help them do in the Consulting Guild is to actually understand the value that they're providing through really defining the specific outcomes and making those outcomes tangible. There is ways of quantifying that value and actually understanding the value you're bringing to the table. So increasing prices to, I would say, probably a level where you're at least getting a tenth of the value that you're creating. That's one really simple way to look at it. The other way is to decrease costs. And one point I want to make on this is that sometimes people look at decreasing costs by removing team members and then they jump back in to do the work. What that does is it sets people back. You're no longer capitalizing. You might think you are in the short term, but no, you've gone backwards to we no longer have capacity again. And you're stuck doing the job, right? So if you're trying to build a business, you're trying to move out of the job. I mean, to actually start in the business in the first place, you probably left a job to start a practice. And the idea behind most people's business was to actually give them more freedom and choice. Well, you're not going to give yourself freedom and choice unless you have the support to support the clients and help them get the results, and that's how that wheel works. So there are many ways to capitalize, but in essence, it's going to be increasing prices, reducing costs. It's going to make your product more sticky. In other words, they buy more product from you, and reducing churn so that they're not leaving before the result is achieved. So let's quickly recap those 4 areas of business. Number 1, we have to have capability. If we don't have capability, then we don't have the ability to help somebody get a result. And so if you haven't got that, then you might need to go and get it. Now, part of that issue that people look at when it comes to capability is sometimes their capability that they're trying to get somebody doesn't match their real capability. So they might be saying, I can help you get $100,000, or what I've seen more often is that I can help you build $1 million business, but they don't have the capability to enable someone to do that. You don't have to make these big, ridiculous promises. You can actually make very small promises, and as many people will be happy to work with you. You might not be able to charge the same sort of value, but you'll charge to your capability, and we'll look at ways to continuously improve. So instead of saying, I'll get you $1 million, or I'll help you get $1 million, I will help you get $1,000. Not only is it an easier promise for you to make, because that's what your capability really needs to be, a promise that you make that you can keep, but it's also more realistic. The person on the other end is more likely to say, well, yeah, I'm willing to risk that because it seems like an easier thing for you to achieve. And so capability is key. School's never out for the professional. You know, we went to school and then we got a job and then we decided to leave the job to start a business. Now, in doing that, we have to go back to school, right? There are so many different things that you're going to learn. And for mine, you know, as an aside, the running of a business, the building of a business is the best personal development step that you can ever take in your life, because it requires that you learn so many different skills, and it requires that you learn patience, and it requires that you learn how to learn in a way that you didn't at school, right? at school you learn to pass exams. In here you learn to have capabilities. And that's what this capability area is all about. So if we've got capability, we really need to take it to market and get clients. Now, as I said before, the way to get clients is, number one, they have to be aware that you exist. They also need to have an awareness of the problem that they want to solve, right? If none of that is true, then that person's not going to become your client. From there, they'll have a lot of options. You will be, hopefully, one of those options if you can present yourself. If you can be there where they can see you. You are a consideration for them. And then we move to a step where you're the best option for them right now, and they're willing to take a step forward. That's the decision making that they'll actually take. So getting clients that's the straightforward process, but it's not straightforward. Underneath this, there is a flow chart of all the different things that you need to do to get clients, from creating that awareness, creating lead generation, starting conversations, moving people into become prospects, which means we're talking about something specific, that they want to actually talk about, and then moving them through a sales process, and then through to onboarding. So there's so many different steps in that, but clients will be that next one. Now, just to step back from this, each of these things is a constraint. This is the thing that's currently constraining your business growth. And so if you don't have the capabilities, that's why you're not growing, because you're either presenting something that people don't want, like it's a capability they don't want, it's not the result that they want, or they don't believe that you are capable. That's a large part of it too. Now, a large part of people believing you are capable is less about you having knowledge and expertise, and actually more about them feeling understood. So a large part of this getting clients is really about speaking to them at their symptomatic level. So you're speaking to them about problems that they're experiencing. When you do that, they feel that you understand them. They feel understood. And so when we've got clients, fantastic. We start, that is building the business. Without clients, we don't have a business. Number 3, we look at capacity. And this is where, if we want to grow, and as I said before, so many consultants get stuck here because of the business model that they've actually got, where they're basically just running 3 or 4 jobs. Yes, they're being paid well for it, but they're still stuck in a job. Now they've got 4 bosses instead of 1 boss. So capacity is, how do you open up the business model, the way you deliver, bringing team on board, bringing resources and systems and automations on board, so that you can enable many of the tasks to be done without you physically having to do them. We can open up capacity of time, and we can open up capacity of activity, so the ability to do more things with less time, to enable us to grow. And then we can take on more clients. And we may need to revisit these things from time to time, because your capability might be fine for now, but now we want to help clients get to a different result. All right, we've got to learn more things. We've got to become more capable in more things. We've got to prove that we can get those outcomes. We've got X amount of clients, but now we put capacity, we increase the capacity. Now we've got more space for more clients. Now we've got to go back and get more clients. And so there is a cycle here that will happen, and we will revisit each of these things. But at one particular point, you will have a constraint to work on. And stick with me here, because I want to make a point about this constraint that's going to be the key to enabling you to be successful. It is a massive difference between those people who are unsuccessful and are spinning their wheels to those who have success a hell of a lot more quickly. And so finally, we want to capitalize, because it's all good and well to have clients, and it's all good and well to have a team and to have a business, but if you're not making money, if you're not getting profits, if you're not having profits that are bigger than what you had as an employee, then what's the point, right? So in some cases there is a point, right? All right, I have more flexibility of lifestyle, I have more choices, and if that's true, fantastic, and that's absolutely fine. It's not all about the money. Once you have a few $100,000 a year, like, most things are doable, right? It's not about buying the Lamborghini, and it's not about buying the private jet. These are things that become more of a hassle. Not that I know, because I haven't got a Lamborghini and I haven't a private jet, but the people that I've spoken to that have those things have become more of a hassle than not. People will rent stuff rather than buy stuff far more often than it appears. So capitalizing is really the result of, like, not building $1 million business. We don't want to build $1 million business and only take home $50,000. This is not a good return on investment. So this is ROI. This is return on investment. This is for every client that comes through. can we be making good profits at the same time as creating value for them? So it's value for them, value for us. It's a win-win. And that's what capitalization is all about. Now, the fact that these are constraints, here is the biggest gap between people who are successful and people who are not. And other than that, thinking that you are, right? Because there's a lot of people who are successful by everyone else's eyes, but they don't feel successful. So we'll put that story to the side. But the key here is that most people, when they start a business, or most people who've been in business a long time, have a general interest in business. And so they have a curiosity for business. They think it's cool or it's interesting. But the ones who are successful, like really successful, are hyper focused about the thing that they're actually doing right now. So the person who has a general interest will maybe read 20 business books in a year and be like, oh yeah, I know all this stuff about business. But the person who is hyper focused and hyper successful is the person who looks at this constraint and says, what is my constraint right now? And they learn what they need to do, and they do what they need to do to actually remove that constraint. And they don't do everything else. They don't distract themselves with 10 other opportunities, because as you become more successful, more opportunities come to you. And the idea is to say no, 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 no more often, because you are clear about what is your constraint. Now, underneath each of these, there is a flowchart of specific activities. And if you want it, I've created a sheet which I've given to the people inside the Forge Business Program to show them the steps to actually enable them to in some cases, work on their own so that they can get rid of these constraints. So if you want a copy of that, you're going to have to do some work to get it. You're going to have to go to russellpearson.com and you're going to have to send me a contact form or an email so that I can send this directly to your email. Like, I'm just not going to put a lead magnet up there so you can just type in and whatever. You're going to have to contact me direct. But capability, if you've got it, you've got something to sell. If you've got clients, then you've got cash flow coming in. If you've got capacity, then you can grow. If you're capitalizing, then you have a successful business that is giving you profits, value, and really the value you deserve for all the hard work that you put in to this business. So identify the constraint. Hyper-focus on that constraint, remove the constraint, and then grow your business. And if you're interested in getting more episodes just like this, I invite you to subscribe so you get notified when the next episode becomes available. And if you haven't already, go to russellpearsonprograms.com and you can download a resource for consulting practices absolutely free. My name is Russell Pearson. This is episode 129 of the Your Consulting Business podcast. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.